6:03 p.m. We're going to call to order this meeting of the Budget Committee. Let's go ahead and begin with a roll call. Melissa, could you go ahead and call roll?
Yes, make sure I'm not muted. Mayor Henry Porter. Oh, I think he's muted. Let me unmute him. There. Mayor, you here? Okay. Councilor Paige Hook. Councilor Ben McDonald has not joined us yet this evening. If he hops on to the Zoom, I'll add him in here. Councilor Chris Mullen.
Here.
Councilor Jordan Ort.
Here.
Councilor David Patty. Luke Cranston. Luke, are you here? Okay.
Yeah.
Connie Dominguez.
Here.
Okay. Ralph Lewis. He's waving at me. He's here. And Brent Walker. He is here also. All right, Councilor Patty.
Okay,
Oh.
So,
Do you want me to do staff also? I'm sorry.
yeah, let's go ahead and do staff.
Okay, so this is Alyssa Angelo. With me here at the community center is also the city manager, Keith Campbell, and police chief, David Friesendahl. And then let's see, we've got Susanna Sabraja, our finance director, and also on here, we've got Dan Fleischman, our director of planning and development, Lance Ludwig, our public works director, and Jana Moser, our library director. I think that covers everybody. I will let you take over.
So the first item we have after roll call is the approval of minutes from the May 4th Budget Committee meeting. I will entertain a motion on those now.
I'll make a motion to accept the May 4th minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that seconding?
I believe it was Jordan, Councilor Ort.
Okay, cool. As long as we know. So we have a motion and a second. Liz, will you call the council?
Yes. Sure. Mayor Porter? Mayor Porter? Okay. Connie? Oh, I'm trying to unmute you, but it's not working. There we go. Okay.
Can you hear?
Yes. All right. Councilor Hook?
Yes.
Luke? A little hard to... He's given a thumbs up. All right. Let's see. Ben's not here. Councilor Mullen?
Yes.
Ralph? Two thumbs up. Brent? Looks like he said yes. Thumb up, thank you. Councilor Ort?
Yes.
And Councilor Patty?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 9-0. We are short a person.
Okay. Then on the agenda is going to be the public hearing that brought us together this evening for the state budget. So, as you all may know, I have a script before we do this. So it starts like this. North Revised Statute 1.770 requires public hearings to be held to hear from citizens regarding the use of state revenue sharing funds distributed to the city of Stayton. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony on the proposed
right, so let's, Susanna, that is you.
Well, real quick, it looks like we do have to test.
You ready for me to talk about the taxes here?
Yes.
So what we did for this year's taxes, we left the cigarette and liquor tax the same as it was last year. And our state revenue sharing is also the same. We adjusted the gas tax by about a 20% decrease, anticipation of what COVID-19 results of the stay in order for less taxes for gas, which gives us a total of the 721,000. What you see before you is the percentage breakdown for each one, and that 721,000 is that portion of the $24.9 million budget for this year. Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have questions for Susanna?
I think Mayor Porter does.
Just a thought, that state revenue sharing, Susanna, is that a dedicated fund, or is it subject to these rollbacks that the state is threatening to do because of decreased revenues? What do we know about that?
From what I understand so far, that has to do with the taxes from what's happening in Marion County, and that's just, it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on with COVID-19 at this point. And this revenue goes to the general fund.
Okay, out of the state revenue fund, state general fund, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not subject to adjustment, is what you're telling me.
At this point, and we left it with the same that we were awarded last fiscal year. We made no increases at this point.
Okay. Well, a decrease is what I was concerned.
We didn't take a decrease either. We just did increase it. It's flatlined revenue from prior year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't know what that sound is. Oh,
Any other questions?
it looks like Luke has a question.
The local gas tax, is that included on this page?
No, this is the one from ODOT from the state only.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Does anyone have additional questions for Susanna?
Counselor Hood does not have any questions.
Okay, I think we're good to move on, Susanna.
Okay. Thank you. So the next, oops, where's my agenda? So then you move forward, David, with general testimony, correct? Is there more for me?
Oh, I thought you had additional items to add to your staff report. I apologize. So
Not for this portion of the state revenue sharing, no.
okay. Thank you.
For the, sorry.
So as far as general testimony, Alyssa, do we want to note who we received comment from prior to this meeting?
We did not receive any testimony for tonight's public hearing.
Okay, so no testimony received. All right. So, is there any public testimony from people there at the, okay.
No, there's no one else here.
Okay, well, I will, looks like I opened the public hearing now, correct?
I think we
Okay.
did it already.
Yeah, okay.
It's
So if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and just close the hearing then. Sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
skipping
okay.
that part in the script. I apologize.
No
Okay,
worries.
there.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
can I
Yes.
just
I want to make a clarification because we did receive public testimony, but it was not about this public hearing, correct, Melissa?
Right.
Correct, it was general public comment.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
want to be clear on that that is the
Yes.
case.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's a good distinction. Thank you, Councilor Orr. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
that.
Councilor Ort.
So there being no testimony, we'll go ahead and move to close the hearing. So at this time, 6:13 p.m., we'll close the hearing and move on. So budget overview again from Susanna, please. Thank you.
Start the slides, Melissa.
Okay. There we go.
All right, it's that wonderful time again, budget season, everyone's favorite. We just couldn't wait for this time. Go ahead, next, Melissa. So, as every year, our goal for our committee here is to review the proposed budget that the city has prepared and put before you for discussion and review. And open dialogue. So we will pause as much as we can and leave room so there's plenty of conversation to discuss and ultimately approve a budget for the upcoming fiscal year and set our tax rate. Next. Our goals are from the council is a very important part of our budget. And in your budget document, starting on page 2 and page 3 are these goals listed, which has where the funding is for each one of these goals. I'm just going to quickly mention just the goal in general, because that is an important part of our focus when the city was putting together their individual, their budgets and bringing it together before you. The first goal that we have addressed in our current budget is our economic development strategy. We continue to move forward with that. Next. We will complete our facilities needs assessment this year because we were unable to complete it last year due to the COVID-19 shutdown. Next. We will continue to move forward for an additional funding for our emergency management so we continue to build the resources we need to address emergencies for our community. Next. We'll continue to we will complete the update on the sewer, water, stormwater, and parks master plan this fiscal year coming up. Next. We will start the search for the second water source for our water. Next. And we've expanded our neighborhood and community grants to increase that to 30,000 this year for people who have applications for continue to improve our city. Next. And to develop our branding strategy. We also did not get to do in this current fiscal year that we will plan to do in the 2021 year for our city. Next. Any questions on any of the goals or anything when you look through them before we move forward?
Does anyone have questions for Susanna?
Each fund will discuss more in detail as well as it comes forward.
Councilor Patty, I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilor.
I'm not really sure if this is the right area to talk about this, so please stop me, Susanna, if I am wrong. Is there any way that we can just discuss the possibility of there being some type of an extra COVID-19 type fund, like a grant type thing? Can we move some of our council funds that we have had before that we haven't used in this last year, or maybe can we talk as a council for this year that we move some of our council funds over to like a grant program, being for like helping the community. Like right now, all of our students are having to go to school online. We don't know how long that's going to go forward, and can we have some type of a grant program that we help fund some of this, some of the internet costs or whatever.
Well, before we dive too deep into that, Councilor, Susanna, is now a good time to discuss this?
We may want to discuss that when we're in that fund specifically, when we're talking about the grant, because we do have the $30,000. Keith may have a different opinion, because this is kind of the over big picture as we move into each segment of the fund. Keith?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is Dan recognized this and got an email just this weekend regarding a matching fund that the state is offering in terms of businesses. And so one of the things we talked about today as we were prepping for this is potentially that community grant fund being utilized for that. Financially, it's going to be challenging to come up with more funds without cutting other programs. So that would be a conversation to have too. Anytime's okay to talk about it. We're going to talk about that in more detail. But if that's something as the budget committee as a whole wants to do, those would be the options we would be looking at as potential funding sources.
Okay, thank you for that, Keith. Councillor Hook, would you like to bring it up now, or do you want to wait for time?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that during this budget committee meeting today, we think about where we could possibly pull more funds to help not only our small business owners, but also our residents with this extra cost of having to pay for things. Let me restate that. I'd like to make a motion that we look and consider during this budget committee meeting today on May 11th for places that we can maybe pull more funds to help our community, both residents and businesses, for the COVID-19 pandemic.
I don't know if you need to do a motion on that. I think it's just something that you've said you would like to do, and I think the rest of the council and the committee can be ready to talk about that.
I feel like maybe I should, because I don't want to be the only person that wants to look at that. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that there's buy-in from everybody on the committee, because I don't want to do something that maybe people don't want to spend time on.
Well, at least coming from me, Councillor Hook, I would say that I'd like to kind of see where the budget money is currently allocated and then have that discussion about where to take it from other places. But that's coming from me as the chair of this committee. I don't know where other people are on that.
Yeah, so I don't hear a second. I'll let you call that, Councillor Patty, and the motion can die if that's what.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Make sure we can see the budget.
Okay. Motion dies for lack of a second. Let's go ahead and move on for now. Oh, unless you had something else, Councillor Hook. I'm sorry.
No, thank you so much.
All right, no problem. So moving on with that, Susanna.
Okay, so to start the basic overview of the budget as we begin, there's a couple key things that are real. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Luke, were you trying to motion? Just bear with us, everyone, on this. I thought I saw Luke making a motion. Did you want to talk, Luke?
Unmute him. He's still muted.
I can't. We can't really view the chats either.
Luke, I'm sorry. Can you go ahead?
Yeah, it's really hard to detect it when half of us are muted. I would like to look at that later, but I'm concerned about what our goal would be on doing that. So I'm willing to entertain the conversation later.
Okay.
For Patty's motion. For the motion.
Okay. If yeah. So thanks. I guess I'll take the moment to say here, we're trying to work through seeing everybody's screens and all of that. So, please help us if you're doing that, raise your hand. If someone sees and we don't recognize somebody, please point it out. It's a unique and challenging situation. We just want to make sure everybody's heard and seen. So we'll continue to try to do that. It's tough on our screen because it's so small and we only have about 5 people that we can see at one time. So if everybody can help out, that would be great. And we'll try to be patient with everyone. So
Thank you.
Donna, I'll turn it over to you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Just go ahead and ask me the questions as we go. That's completely fine. Because again, I have the same thing. I see 5 of you, so I may not see it, but I'll be able to hear you. So, and as long as the background noise with your mics are on don't overtake, it should be okay. As we move forward in this budget, there's a couple key things to keep in mind as we write this, as we prepare this budget before I go over these numbers, is that we're really unsure of the impact of what COVID-19 is going to do. Keith addressed it in his letter when he said, when he read it, when he gave you guys the budget last week, and it is really a hedge budget. So our revenues are flatlined in most of them and decreased in some areas, anticipation, and adjusted our expenditures to allow for that so that we're prepared. So just having that in mind as we go through this overview picture of where we are at. So I wanted to just refresh that thought as well. The overall budget for the city is $24.9 million, which 11.1 will be coming from beginning fund balance. About 9 million will be from your ending fund balance. Overall, we're spending about 15.5 million, and understanding that if some of that is transfers between funds, where 2 million of that revenue will be directly from other funds supporting the expenditures. Next.
Sorry, come on. There we go.
So taking a look at our revenues as a big picture here, the revenues coming in at the 10.9, you can see that the majority of our revenues coming in is charged for service. That is our largest amount. And that's why we flatline these revenues for concern of how many will not be able to pay depending on how far out this pandemic goes. And you can see property taxes is the next huge resource of revenue coming in that supports the city. Next. At this current time, according to Marion Tax Assessor, our, let me get the words right, because I'm still trying to remember all this stuff. Our tax rate is currently still at 3.3, but they have assessed, where's that word? Our taxable assessed value, it increased by 5.1% from last year. But anticipation, we did project our revenues for our budget the same as they were last year. We did not instate this increase for an unknown collection. And intergovernmental fund is still based on the 0.5% increase. Next. We have increased our rates by the CPI rate, which is at 2.5%, and an additional 5% added to water. Again, anticipating the loss of revenue based on the economic downturn, we did flatline the revenue, even though we do have the rate increases. And our SDC funds, which is our system development charges, are based on the NRA, which we did at a 1.6% increase. Next. You're taking a look at our expenditures as the city as a whole for the revenue coming in. Our expenditures is at 12.6 million. 38% of that is going to personnel. 36% of that is going to materials and services. 17% is going to our capital outlays, and 9% is going to our debt. That's how our expenditures break out for the city as a whole. Any questions up to this point? Councilor Page. Councilor Hope Abraham.
Councilor Hope, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find my mute button. Susanna, I have a question about these utility revenue rate increases. These are projected increases that we're talking about, correct? They haven't actually happened yet?
There are the rates that were approved by the council prior, and it's our annual increase.
I understand that. What I'm asking is, have they gone into effect yet?
No, they need to be approved in this budget. It's effective of 7/1.
Great. So we're saying that on $100 a month bill, that a person is getting, that their bill would go up $7.50 a month?
2.5%. And then again, remember that water usage is broken down by how much gallons they use and that kind of thing as well.
Got it. Okay.
So it's not really that direct line.
Can we get a better look at, or a little bit more explanation of what that rate increase is going to look like for residents per month? Because I'm just thinking, we're in a pandemic where people are not able to pay their bills.
When we get close, when we get to the water fund, I will be able to give you that more. I don't have that in front of me, but when we do get to that portion over the next few days, I can have a better look at that for you. And currently, understanding the situation for our community, we're not charging late fees and we're not doing shut off notices to help assist, and we are working more with payments and for those things as well.
Okay.
And so far, it hasn't been. That's working.
Great. I would like us to consider, just at least think in our minds about the potential of either delaying the rate increases for half of the year if we can, or a quarter or something. Just kind of let that simmer in your guys' minds if we can.
When we go forward with the budget and we start talking about the condition that the water fund is in and the street fund and those funds, I think you should hear those first, because there are some big needs coming up, and especially when we talk about the 5-year projections and where we're at, you probably want to hear all of those things before you look at those options again as well.
Great. Thank you.
Susanna?
Yes.
I have Counselor, or I just have a question about one slide back where you're talking about the water. And I don't know if this is forgive me, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but have we given consideration to, you're talking about like money coming in, but consideration to like the processing plant shutting down, NORPAC shutting down, like how that's going to affect not only our water usage, but like how much money the town's receiving from
Water fund.
yeah, that,
Yes.
not receiving from them now that they're not utilizing that.
Yes, we have an estimated decrease of about $351,000 from the loss of NORPAC.
Okay.
And that is factored into when we get to talking on the water of what the total revenue for charge for service looks like, based on that that decrease, and then the rate increase, and then flatlining it based on the 18-19 actuals, so that we can adjust expenditures to be prepared for the unknown.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this was a resolution for your rate increases that was approved prior to me. Is that correct, Alyssa?
Yes.
Or Keith?
Yes.
For the annual increases for the next 5 years or something, right?
Yes.
We're muted, so hold on.
You're
Sorry,
muted.
we were muted. Yes.
Okay.
Keith's saying yes.
Yeah, that was also prior to COVID-19, though. I want to make that clear.
Correct. It was done a few years ago, I believe. Any more questions on this part?
Mayor Porter has a question.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Where is he? Okay, we can hear you. Oh, I'm muted.
Did she get that, or
No.
No, I didn't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor.
Are you familiar with an economic term called deflation?
A little bit.
Not letting the air out of something, but actually a decrease, an overall decrease in prices.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if we factored that into our thinking about these rate increases. It may be that there is no real inflation in prices through this year. Maybe this quarter is the only downturn in prices, but I just wondered if we factored that in at all. The idea that prices may actually be going down.
Susanna, I'll jump in. We have looked, I mean, what you're seeing for our recommendations is what the CPI has been since the last budget cycle. One of the challenges we're facing is we were seeing growth of about 2.9%. In the last quarter, we saw a deflationary increase of 0.4%. But the budget presented to you is covering the cost through basically this budget cycle. So in the next year, it's possible we could see some deflationary rates. And also, it's important to remember that for personnel issues that were tied to CPI rates as well. But that is one of the challenges with this budget was looking at this and seeing 1 month of deflationary period. But the adjustment you're seeing is based off of the actual cost since the last budget cycle.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
We do the CPI report from March.
Okay, we're good. I'm good.
Any other questions to this point so far? Next slide, where were we, Alyssa? We did this one about expenses breakdown. The city's budget as a whole has 52.9 full-time FTE equivalent positions. There is some reduction in our staffing for this budget going forward. The pool, we are reducing operation hours, so that results in a reduction of a 2.6 FTE. The library funding from the Library Foundation needed to do a reduction to the position that they pay for, so it's a small reduction of 0.10. And we still have on the table for the part-time position to be added to the administration budget. Any questions on personnel for the city as a whole?
Does anyone have questions for Susanna?
It looked like Jordan might.
Sorry, I couldn't.
No, you're okay.
Trying to this. Yeah.
No, you're okay.
So is the pool staffing? You're saying we're doing that, but is that temporary?
No.
No.
And when we go in and talk about the pool budget, the pool has a lot of very high expensive needs to get the maintenance and repair to keep the stable out the needs of the pool, and reducing the hours down on a weekly basis. The pool's still open 7 days a week. It would be continuous until we can stable out that fund and the pool maintenance needs.
Okay.
Susanna, this is Chris Mullen. And I'm not trying to speak for Counselor Ort. It's just that the numbers don't seem to add up when you look at 1.8 FTE, and then the next line says 2.6 is pool staffing. So can you explain how it goes from 2.6 FTE and then 0.1 for library and then 0.6 part-time for administration, how that adds up to 1.8? And I know that the math is there, just if you could explain.
It's just when you put them together as a whole, you do the grand total and you do the minus and the pluses, it shakes out to only being a 1.8 decrease, because we increased by 0.6 for administration, is really the big adjustment in there when the math works.
Oh, that's my bad. I thought
That's
that
okay.
0.6 was also a reduction.
No, that's an increase.
Thank you.
And that, again, that's the city as a whole, remember.
Yeah.
Alyssa, I lost my picture. This is Mayor Porter.
Yeah.
Can you see us now, Mr. Mayor?
No?
We can see you. If that helps.
Yeah. Well, he's on.
Well, it says Zoom on it, but and the sound is there.
We can hear you, Mayor.
Okay, maybe that's
Did
enough.
you bump and do it? Is it down at the bottom and maybe you shrunk it by accident and it'll just pop back up?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm afraid to touch this thing.
Do you want to see if you can make that work while Susanna's continuing on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Susanna, this is Counselor Ort again. So I do have some more specific questions about the pool and that. But should I save them till you get to that presentation about it, and then see if you're?
I think that'll be easier, because then you're going to be looking at the entire budget and the cost of the repairs, and then because we have that in more detail. This is kind of a big picture to bring in. And somebody made a chat note that it's still off by 0.3 FTE. Remember, I'm just rounding these up. I'm not going all the way out to the digits. I'm just giving you round numbers. It's 2.6 something, 1 point something. So
yeah, it was fine.
It's a half-time position. We have a max of 28 hours a week for a part-time position, and the pool will vary a little bit for hours.
Counselor Patty, I
Yes.
wanted to make a comment. I think that it's important to say that the comment was made by Luke in the chat, just for our record.
Oh.
I don't think that is privy to the public. I don't think they can see the chat stuff. So I just want to make sure that we put that out there. That the comment of the missing was from a citizen member.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
That's okay.
Your name doesn't
If
say
it's-
this, I
if
wasn't
the
sure who
number-
it was.
Yeah. It's my voice account.
That's okay. I'll remember going forward. Okay, next slide, please, Alyssa.
Sorry. There we go.
Our debt services remain the same as last year. We've incurred no new debt. We're still continuing to pay the interfund loan between stormwater and wastewater. So there's no change in that.
I mean, I can't
Next.
too much because they're watching everything. They're right. I think she said
Looking
next.
at our capital outlay projects, last year we had 3.2 million. This year we have 2.2 million. So we have a $1 million decrease in our capital outlay projects for this year. This slide is just to give you a visual
I
of
just
each
turned them up all
fund,
the way.
seeing that the street
I
fund has
just
the
did
most
that.
capital outlay projects planned for this coming fiscal year, being at over 900,000. And then there's all the other ones, and we'll talk about what each one of these are as we get to the funds, but that's kind of a nice visual of how that money breaks out per fund. Any questions on that, though?
Is the decrease due to the COVID-19 or it just happened that way?
Some of the projects are being held back because of we are flatlining the revenue to give us some room just in case, and some are we just are the ones that we needed to be done. It's kind of a combination of both.
Okay.
The staff really wanted to spend time and figure out trying to keep it in perspective of the unknown in front of us, of getting the important projects accomplished, and your council goals are in these expenses as well, knowing we may adjust as the year begins to unfold.
When it was all working fine.
Does that help, Luke?
Yes, thank you.
Next. And when you're looking at the general fund, and we're looking at what expenditures are coming from the revenue that's going into the general fund, we have $4.9 million coming in to general fund. That breaks out to 50% of it is the expenditures are for the police department. The council and administration is 26% of that. The planning and community center lights and the court are all combined together to be a 10% total of the revenue coming in that we'll be spending it on. And then the non-department operations, that 14%, that's a combination of those specialty monies that don't really fit a department, the emergency management money, and completing the CBDG grant. I hope I got those initials right. And then, of course, the transfers to support the pool, library, and the parks is in that 14% as well. And that's just kind of an overall breakdown of the general fund. Any questions on that? Again, it's a big picture, and we'll talk about each individual fund as we get to it. Or department, I should say, when this. Questions? I think the next slide is not me, right? We switch to a different, yep, okay. Thank you.
All right. Dave?
Okay. So I'm gonna get can you guys hear me? Because we're all in the same room, and if we use the same mics on the computers, it's gonna create a heck of an echo. So is everybody good hearing me? Can I get a thumbs up or?
I can hear you.
Okay.
That's okay.
I can hear you. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So there's going to be pretty quick on this, but I want to talk about some of our priorities and that kind of thing. The first thing is on our budget for the police department, we're about 2.4% above the prior year, which is still currently under the CPI and really is sort of in line with what we've done in the past. Some announcements I'd like to say within this is as of Friday, and let me rephrase real quick too. Through this budget, there's been several things that have happened in the last 72 hours. They're really positive for us, the police department. So I'm probably going to give you guys some announcements that you haven't heard yet. So sort of some surprises and regular budget stuff. So this is going to be great, I think. So the first thing is, as of Friday, the police department's sworn staff, we are fully staffed. We hired a captain, Captain Gwen Johns. She is a long-standing sergeant with the Newburgh Police Department. She left there to come to us. So she started on Friday, and hopefully we will be able to get her here on a meeting and a Zoom here soon. So that's the first thing. So for part of our budget, that's one of the things that we're actually fully staffed, which hasn't happened in a long time, which also have an impact on the budget. Also, in our budget, you will see that there's an increase in the building maintenance and improvements. Part of that is we just need better security. As you heard from Dave Nelson, probably 4 or 5 months ago on an inspection they did with our insurance providers, that there were some security issues. So we're trying to make some improvements there. Just for that and safety, as well as it just needs some upgrades inside there. We've got officers that have been with the department over 20 years and they're still on the same carpet. So we'd like to, make their home a little bit nicer. They're a lot of hours, so that's part of it. Also, an increase in technologies. One of the things that we did that you'll see in some later slides is we made some improvements to our digital evidence. We are now with evidence.com, which allows us to have our digital evidence double redundant through a CGIS process. So we never lose it. It also gives us the opportunity to do redactions as well as classify. It's also going to be a time saver for officers due to the fact that they no longer have to burn CDs for every single piece of digital evidence they have to be stuck on the base computers. They can actually do it from their cars, from their phones, and lots of other things. So it's definitely an improvement for us. Also, our line item for overtime funds has also been increased from $40,000 to $60,000. That actually puts us more in line with the previous budgets of like 2017, 2018. Part of this is some goals that you'll see later, some additional slides about participating with the different teams, as you see here, actually with priorities for the community in the slide. As well as being fully staffed, that's going to be more people doing more investigations and hopefully more arrests and keeping our community safer, which oftentimes does take extra time. So the first thing, it's a big one too, I'd like to talk about is that first big one there is beginning the accreditation process. Accreditation is a very lengthy and long process. It's 18 to 24 months. We are going to be doing that. So you'll probably see this again this budget cycle and the next. But there's some really great things that comes out of accreditation. One, for the community, it enhances the confidence that we as a police department are all following best practices, which is best for everyone that walks and lives in our streets and lives here and has their family here. It also has greater transparency, and that's really important. Transparency is important so they understand they can trust us and they know what we're doing, and we can actually have a really good two-way conversation. Also, for the agency itself, for accreditation, you're going to see greater administrative and operational effectiveness, decreased exposure, and this is a big one, to civil liability and settlements, as well as providing state and local acknowledgement of our professional competency as an agency. So it's really important. For the staff, it enhances and understands our agency, our policies and procedures. It also assures consistent recruitment, selection, and promotion process that are fair, equitable, and non-discriminatory.
Real quick, Dave.
Yeah.
Is there any way to have you on screen? We're getting notes from the chat. They're asking if you can be there and answer questions as we go along.
Camera on there?
They won't let me unless you let me.
Oh. Do you want to just come over here?
Can you release me on that side over there?
I probably can, and then we'll just leave you muted.
Yeah, leave me muted. Just bring my camera up.
Let me.
You're fantastic. Thank you for making that happen, you guys.
What, you guys don't?
Thank
What do
you.
you think? It's just that I'm a ghost?
Yeah, I think it's good to have your face to the voice and the information, and just good for the community and keeping all of us engaged.
All right, you should see me.
Thank you.
You bet. We just had to release it. So on that first slide, you see also is an increase to our partnerships with other law enforcement agencies. One of the goals that I have for the agency is also for us to start participating with the other teams. That'd be the crash team, hopefully the HEART team for major critical incidents throughout the county. That's going to make us better. It's going to improve our professional capacity as an agency. And I think that's highly important for us. That also goes along with the accreditation we have. So you'll see that. Also, now that we're fully staffed, like I said, we have good news, is really trying to get more people out there with our community connections and through various events as well as media. So is there any questions on that first slide and all the talk that I've been doing at all? Okay, next slide.
Every time I click away.
Okay, we'll work on it. So really, we're
Did it
talking
go?
about, the next slide is going to be talking about our accomplishments with our agencies. So the first thing, I've already said on that one, go ahead and you can read through those briefly, but I'll talk about a couple things that are really big deals. One's the firearms range. We actually added a building last budget season, and we're continuing the ongoing improvements. We're looking at trying to make that even a better range. It's a regional asset for not only us, but for state, local, and county agencies that go out and use that. We're trying to put a plan together for the future to actually expand our range to become a greater asset to our law enforcement family by creating a rifle deck out on the range that we currently have. So last year with the budget funds that were provided, we were able to actually include a brand new shooting bays and classroom out there to host classes, which is going to be great for the agency. Our little friend at the bottom right there, Atlas, he is our comfort canine. He is part of a wellness and resiliency program that we're starting to roll out to the officers. And it's really important. People talk about wellness and resiliency in law enforcement. It's something that's studies are coming out and it's new and it's really progressive and it's something that we should do for our staff. Atlas is that first step. The funds that came from him did not come out of our general funds. It came out from donations for our previous canine program, so that's very nice to have. We will be doing a more of a public announcement on him, so there's our second ta-da for everybody tonight, which is great. The reason we waited to announce it was we weren't sure if Atlas was going to be successful for the training, but we're at a certain point on it. It looks like it's going to happen, so we're very happy to have him. With some of the funds that we have, the resiliency we'll be looking at, it's also its fitness, nutrition, overall sleep for our officers, their health, they're on shift work to improve it. Their quality of life, not only on duty but off duty. You know, an officer that has a great home life is also going to be a solid officer in the community for us as a whole. So Atlas is our first step in that. On that slide also is down below, and this will be my third announcement for the night. As you see, we partnered with Marion County's Narcan distribution program, so that way we can deploy naloxone for an opioid overdose, which could be prescriptions and or fentanyl or something else within the community. To add to that, the announcement is we received a grant from the Oregon Community Foundation last week that we applied for. Sergeant Meeks is the one that put in for it, did the work on it, so kudos to him. That the city received or police department received $28,000 grant to place AEDs in each of our patrol cars, and we can start a replacement program every year. AEDs can be pretty expensive, about $2,500 a unit. The AEDs combined with the Narcan really protects our community. That allows us the ability as officers in the field traveling to be very responsive. A lot of times fire and medic units are in quarters when we're out. We could actually respond to a known issue within minutes. As we know, when it comes to life-saving, every minute does count. So this is going to make us more agile. It also, I think, protects not only the community but our budget. So it'd be one less thing that I'm going to have to come ask you for is for new AEDs. The AEDs we currently have are probably 10 years old. We're trying to replace batteries and do everything to keep them going. So this will be the most current and updated AEDs. And as we phase those out, we will partner with the city and other locations to deploy those AEDs for our community use for the medical emergency. So we're really happy about that. Anything on that slide anybody like to talk about?
So any more questions today?
I do, Councilor Patty.
Go, Councilor.
Yeah. Chief, I have a question about what happens when the naloxone is used, like for replacements in this partnership. What does that partnership look like?
Right now, that partnership is free through the county. So as we deploy, we have spare naloxone on the officers as well as attached to our AED units. So the nice thing about that is if we use it, we deploy it, we report it to a national database through the county, and at this point in time, they replace it free of cost. So this is a zero cost to the city of Stayton.
That is amazing. I'm really excited about that, especially since it's pretty well known that, naloxone doesn't really have any adverse effects if you use it and it wasn't a narcotic or an opiate that you overdosed on. So this is only good for our community. This is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you. It works. I could take it right now, with a little bit of an allergy, and it had no effect on me whatsoever. So it's great. Hopefully in the future that'll become an over-the-counter type deployment in the future, but we'll see. But it does make us more versatile, and I think that's very, very important for our community.
All right, any more questions for Dave? Okay, let's move on.
All right, last slide. So a lot of stuff on there. But really the big things is on here. One thing is starting to look at data-driven policing. One of the things that occurred last year and some of our opportunities too was we went over to Mark 43. Mark 43 is our records management system. With that, there are some analytics on the backside. It's just taking some staffing, some time to start building reports so we can actually be a little more flexible with deployment and to have officers look at areas that are possibly having greater criminal activity happening to them. So that's one of the things we're looking at, as well as part of our operational funds also goes to Outlay, which is the database that we pay for. I'm actually on the board that has many agencies within the valley throw all their data into, so it's an investigative tool that our officers can use. Another thing,
Dave, real quick before you move on the back end of Mark 43, as far as reports that you can compile from an administrative point of view, what types of reports might that provide us as city councilors at council meetings just to get crime updates in our community? What new opportunities are available to us to be able to see what's going on in our city from Mark 43's migration?
Right. One of the things that we'll be able to do is do some hotspotting, which will give us those clumps that we can look at over time, 1 week or a month, to show you where we're having issues, where we can deploy officers. I'll be honest with you, the person who has that analytics is me. That's one license is all we can afford with it, and I have not had the time to actually dive into that deeply, but that is a goal now that I'm fully staffed and I have a captain. We will do that, so you'll be able to get some crime reporting that'll go out. The goal would be eventually to actually be able to put that up on a website so citizens can actually see it also.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
But that's, of course, technology. It's us working with Salem. Mark 43 is not, we're part of a consortium with the city of Salem, so a lot of that depends on what we can do with the data. So, but those are definitely goals to move forward.
Councilor Patty, I have a follow-up on that.
Go ahead, Councilor.
I wasn't sure if you were aware, Chief, but Councilor Patty and I both have training in crime analysis, and so I would love to see more behind the scenes of what you guys are looking at and what's available, just so I can have a better idea of what we could be looking at as a counselor, like what questions we could be asking.
Yeah, like I said, I'll have to get more into how rich the analytics are. It seems to be pretty much in creating reports is going to be what you guys would like to look at. I think we just have that richer conversation down the road to say what you're looking at, and we can make that happen.
Thank you.
You bet.
I think Mayor Porter may have had a question.
Mayor Porter. Yes, he did, but he couldn't get anyone's attention. Chief, I've got a son that's an armed federal officer, and they're changing from 40 caliber Glocks back to 9mm. And the reason is that too many people don't shoot the 40 well. Is that part of your thinking on our move in that direction?
Yeah, the 40 caliber. One, it is we've gone to 9mm. Not just that, but it was time to rotate out the firearms. 9mm is actually, one capacity-wise is a greater, the Glocks we're carrying have more ammunition that you can throw in there. Also, it is easier to shoot. The Gen 5s that we actually purchased, like any other technology, they've gotten smart on the guns. The back strap on those handles have actually, they give us multiple thicknesses, so it fits people's hands appropriately. The 40 caliber round was designed by the FBI. That was supposedly that nice ultimate round. We found out that round really didn't have any extra penetration or anything that benefited it, and actually created more of a snappy weapon, which did make it harder for people to actually shoot accurately. And obviously, we all want those. We have to count for each of those rounds to go down range. So the 9mm one, it gets us updated with the proper firearm, I think, as well as something that, depending on the person's size of hand and ability, actually works for them. So that was part of last year's budgetary to go over to the Glock, as well as outfit the AR platform rifle that we have with better technology, with red dot scopes, better lighting, and get to a point where we can actually issue each officer in our department the AR platform, so they know it's exactly set up for them appropriately.
And we hope they never have to use them.
Yes, sir.
Also, on that, have you guys ever thought of using that range to promote handgun firearm safety within the community rather than just law enforcement agencies?
Yes, sir, we have actually. I've had a conversation last week with my range master, as well as a sergeant in charge of the program, and actually are starting to have that conversation that we'd always been city property, looking at our liabilities and what that would be. But we are working forward on seeing if we can actually have the bandwidth to do it and do it consistently. That's one thing I've always, anytime I'm looking at a new program, not that it's just one and done, but that we can consistently provide that to the community when we give that type of a program.
Please. Yeah, keep working on that one. You bet.
Will do.
Here, here. Any other questions for the chief?
So on that last one we had up there, also fleet issues. We have an aging fleet still. Got 3 cars that are getting close to that 10 or over years and approaching 100,000 miles. So that's one of the capital outlays on there is another police vehicle. I'd be probably replacing that yearly as we move forward, because that's just a benefit to what we have. We don't have to have higher costs for repairs and that. Other than that, again, I'm sorry I'm looking down here. I know I'm on video. We're going to go back to those, just the opportunities, again, being fully staffed is getting back to our schools a little bit more, trying to do a little more community outreach as we can, and overall everything, the accreditation, the overtime funds, the teaming with the various county agencies really goes back to that last bullet point, increasing our professional capacity as an agency, and just develop well-trained staff to service our community at a higher level. And that's really ultimately our overall reaching goal. So I appreciate the time very much.
Hey, Chief, this is Chris Mullen. I have one quick question, just a clarifying question.
You bet.
On the second to the last bullet, you say develop a resiliency program for staff to improve wellness and overall health. And when I first read that, I thought you meant like succession planning, like having skills and knowledge 2 to 3 people deep. Can you expound on that a little bit, what you mean by that?
Yeah, the resiliency program really is what I was talking about before. So at my previous agency before I retired, the one thing we were looking at was resiliency. Am I saying my stuff?
No, I'm just ready.
He was rolling away from me.
I'm rolling the camera so I can talk as well.
It's really looking at overall health. A lot of officers that you see out there, you're seeing studies, and I go out and look for them. But PTSD is a lot for officers. We want them healthy, making very critical and quick decisions. That's proper sleep, proper nutrition, proper health.
Gotcha.
And that's really trying to create up a program that's not mandatory, but voluntary. And it gives us a better product in the field. We, in the police department, like to say, we don't get to make widgets. Our people are our most valuable asset in more ways than one. And the other part, I think when we talk, sir, about contracts and stuff, one thing we talk about is retention and recruiting. Right now, I'm totally staffed, and I get to say, I don't have to recruit. But the same thing, I want to keep everybody, and that's that, creating an agency in which everybody feels very valued, and I would like to expand our program once it rolls out to even family members if possible, given whatever restrictions we have.
I'll jump in to answer your question, Chris, which is I think as a policy as a whole, and one of the things we're working on across multiple departments, and I'll use a term the chief likes to use, which is toolboxes. And our goal is very much to get people's toolboxes so succession planning is here, so we have quality people in line here to step into roles. And at the department head level, what we've talked about is who could be the person to replace us, and that's the way we need to be thinking and proactive. We laughed, I think Dave smiled when you asked the question. So I think you're seeing this in finance, you're seeing this in administration, and you're seeing this in the police department. And really starting to have conversations with employees. What I like to say is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how do we get to you? I'm looking at Dave as I'm turning at the camera, realizing I need to look here. But, how do we get people to have the toolbox and toolkit so that when those positions come available, they can be at the table and be a viable candidate. So it is something that's important to us and something we've been having conversations. Susanna's, succession planning. I'm succession planning. Chief is succession planning. And we're trying more and more, same thing in the library, looking for opportunities for leadership classes and skills and abilities, and looking at what the jobs qualifications are, and to start having conversations with people, even in the lower levels, to be able to move up and advance and to have those conversations. So it's something that we spent a lot of time over the last year talking about and preparing for, and that's something I'm pretty proud the staff has been pretty aggressive in doing.
And sir, the one thing I'd like to add to that too, in the selection of our captain, the people on that board, that was one of the directions I gave them. I know I've been here a short time, but we just never know, especially in this line of work in the world we're in. I wanted them to look for somebody who, when they're talking to them, goes, that's somebody who could replace me. I think that's sometimes one of the greatest things you can do is actually find somebody who can actually push you out of your job and train them up. So that was something that we were looking for.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, people need to have a career track. I won't tell you my age, but at my age, I'm still thinking about what I want to be when I grow up and what I want to do next. And I don't think in your career that should ever stop. So that's great to hear.
You bet. If you guys don't have any other questions, that's my last slide. I took up 5 more time than I actually was planning on. I apologize.
Thank you, Dave.
I do.
Oh,
I have a question.
Going back.
Sorry. When I minimize my screen, it just gets rid of the mute button. So, yeah, that's why it takes me so long to get to it. Sorry. Chief, I have a question about the vehicles. Are there any of them that, even though you're fully staffed, wouldn't be utilized, or is there a way that we could, I don't know, take one out of rotation where we could then pause for 1 year on updating the vehicles and maybe move that money towards something that's community-based to help out with COVID-19, like voucher program to help fix small issues as you guys are making traffic stops for taillights or muffler issues or cracked windshield, things like that people may in our community have an issue with. I just don't know if it would still be police related then, but maybe more community resident focused to help them through this time as you guys are making stops.
Yeah, I guess yes. 2 questions there. I think one, the vehicle replacement has been a challenge since I've been here with the city doing budgets. We did a double purchase a few years ago, but one of the challenges we still have is a fleet that is aging, and we're still trying to keep up with making sure our officers have vehicles that are in good condition and reliable. And so, I mean, that is one of those expenses that we do consider sort of critical. Now, you had a second component. I'll let the chief talk about that.
So the second component on part of what you're saying, people have some vehicle issues. There's a program with the Oregon Chiefs Police Association that I'm looking into that will help some of those folks that are, if I heard the question right, that'll actually help them with some discounts and stuff through neighboring auto parts companies and that kind of thing. So that would reduce the costs dramatically to get them in compliance. So if that was sort of the question.
Chief, I was under the understanding from the superintendent of OSP that every single city in Oregon was already a part of that voucher program. That was a quote from him at our diversity and inclusion training that I went to for my job. Are we not a part of that program then?
No, not at this point in time. We are not. That's actually been offered through the Oregon Chiefs of Police Association. In Oregon, it's not a requirement that whole associate everybody in the state is part of it. I am part of that association. We just haven't got to the point to get those vouchers from them. I think part of the superintendent was getting at would be that everybody has the opportunity to participate in that. That it goes through the Chiefs of Police Association to actually ensure that they're getting all those vouchers out appropriately and have some accountability for it.
Yeah. That program doesn't cover things like a heater that has gone out or a cracked windshield, though, I don't think. And those are the things that I think are going to be, I'm wondering if we can expand on that program for a temporary time, especially now that we're going into winter. I know as a single mom myself, I had my heater go out, and I literally had a police officer stop me in Stayton, and it had gone out that day, that morning. And if I had not been in a financial situation where I could have gotten that fixed, I don't know what I would have done. So I think I would love it if we could somehow look at this. I understand that we have had a problem with replacing vehicles in the past, but of all times to make some type of a pause or cut, I would think that a national emergency would be a great time for that and to focus our money on our community.
Right. That would be, it's basically a discount program that the state police has worked with certain vendors. So, and I don't know which vendors, but obviously that would be like O'Reilly's and that kind of stuff. And my understanding from my quick review of it would be any part. It's not free. It's still a cost, but it's a discount cost. At least for the actual pieces of parts and not the labor of install and those type of things. But it would help defer some of those costs for folks.
Yeah, that's great. I just think that it's not good enough during this time. I mean, normally I would say it's amazing. I'm very concerned about our community members and their incomes and inability to pay and fix things.
I understand that. I wish I had that money sitting somewhere that I could actually make all those repairs for people in need. There are other programs within the county or within our region right now. Sandy Integration Team, oftentimes, depending on the person's situation, we can make requests of them through Sandy Hospital to actually try to fill some of those gaps at times. So those requests come in. I see those through Melissa Bauer off and on. We are actually part of that. I'm on that part of that board to actually vote for those type of situations that come up. It's just a matter of pointing people to those right locations to see what funds are out there.
Councilor Patty, I have one follow-up question.
Okay, final question.
Thank you. Chief, I am wondering about, you had made a comment about it's the problem is pointing people into that direction. Are your officers equipped then to make that recommendation about the Sandiam integration team and when you get this voucher program rolling hopefully soon? I'm also wondering about like when that might happen. But are they ready to tell people as they're stopping them and making the stop and saying you need to get this fixed? That hey, there are these, you can go to this place, this place, this place, and like, is there anything that they can hand them so that they have the resource attached to their warning or their ticket or whatever?
Okay. Well, we're going to get into some case law now too. Then, so some of those things we have to be very limited on based on the current case law that has come down to us. So we have to keep our conversations very specific to that issue of the stop. So we have to be very cautious of how we're speaking to people. But yes, our officers are trained in regards to other resources like arches for some of our other folks here in town, which we've used, as well as Sandiam integration team, and try to connect as much as we can with the resources. And honestly, the limited resources that are out here in the Canyon and the state area.
Okay, I'm just saying because I was just stopped by one of your officers not long ago and I didn't hear anything about that when I said that my heater just broke that morning.
So for the expectation of an officer to actually ask that many questions to find out somebody's personal situation on a car stop, usually there has to be a little bit of conversation in regards to you and the person you're speaking with. That if there's something there that they're actually starting to bring up themselves. So every car stop, we don't go through a list of questions of, your car tail lights out, Do you have the funds or the resources to actually fix that or deal with that violation? Now, through that conversation, if the citizen is actually saying things like that, then yeah, I do have that expectation to say, okay, how do we help them fix that? How do we help them problem solve that? But that's not part of an actual traffic stop from the beginning to the end. So it
I
depends on that.
understand that, but what I'm saying is, like, we have police departments that hand out turkey to people for traffic stops. So, I mean, that's really not specific to the situation either. We're in a different time right now. I'm dissatisfied with the answer.
I understand that. We've actually limited our traffic stop at this point in time to protect our officers from COVID, to that of life safety and some very basic stuff, given the times that we're talking about. So trying to keep them safe too, so they can actually respond appropriately to hot priority calls in the community. So I've actually requested that they limit that to a point that our operations have had to be limited in regards to in-person contact. So we're trying to do as much as we can by 21 or by phone to limit their exposures so they can be there for when those critical incidents happen. So there's a very big conversation here when it comes to that in regards to our response to COVID and trying to keep them safe as well and healthy so they can respond appropriately.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Okay. So let's move right along to planning and development.
Yes, and let me invite Dan to start his video. Here he comes.
Good evening, everybody. So we can get the next slide.
Maybe.
There we go. So, Planning and Development Department is focusing on 4 core strategic issues in this coming year: continuing downtown revitalization, promoting development in the Wilco Road industrial area, implementation of the economic development strategies that were adopted by the City Council last either June or July. And for the past 5 or 6 months, the Planning Commission has been discussing housing and residential zoning issues. The COVID situation has meant that the Planning Commission has not been meeting as frequently, and those discussions have slowed down. They're difficult to do over Zoom, but we see that continuing in the coming year. Next. In 2018, we processed 17 land use applications and 6 city-initiated files. The number of applications was down last year. For this year, even since the slide was made, we've had 2 more, so we're up to 5 applications, as well as 1 that is still carried over from calendar year 2019 and on the City Council's future agenda. Next. This coming year, code enforcement will be moved from the police department to the planning and development department. That position is currently open, but we expect it to be a roughly half-time position once we can get it filled. In the budget is money for continued contract services to fund implementation of the economic development strategies. And the materials and services portions of the department's budget has been increased to account for code enforcement. For the first time, there's vehicle maintenance costs and gas and oil and that type of stuff, because there has not been a vehicle assigned to the planning department before, and the code officers will need one. Next. Oh, I guess that was it for the slides. So that is the real change in the planning and development department's budget is really mostly the result of moving code enforcement in from the police department. So there's an increase in both personnel and materials and services to reflect that. If you have questions, I will answer them.
Any questions for Dan?
I see hand slips moving.
Okay, hold on.
Eric Porter?
Yeah, Dan, I occasionally go by the Hayden development out there, and I don't know, the last month or so I haven't seen, they're finishing all that groundwork, but what's the status of that as far as you know?
About 2 weeks ago, I asked the Public Works Director what the status was, because at this point it's really up to Public Works.
Okay.
They are close to being substantially complete. Once they get a letter of substantial completion from the city engineer, then they are able to submit a final plat for approval. But we are still waiting for them to finish up whatever details need to be done.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Dan?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Try to keep our social distancing here. So there's a couple funds that we're just going to talk about. I'll have Susanna jump in if she wants to as well. There isn't major changes. I think one of the things that's sort of important to note is we do have the facility needs assessment that's been delayed, where information we're looking at for making decisions in the future. The community center is obviously one of those places. Just to advance forward, here's just some basic metrics on the community center. The budget document, I think, speaks for itself. There really isn't any significant plan changes or updates, but what I'll say is, going forward with that McKinsey plan, I think the community center is one of those facilities that's going to need some conversations about what its future is going to hold and what we do moving forward in terms of the facility. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the community center.
Does anyone have questions for Keith on the community center? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on.
Municipal court, again, I'm going to let the budget sort of speak for itself on the municipal court. We've had the court now, I think, in operation for about 6 years, I think. At this point, the court is sort of operational. There is some challenges right now with COVID in terms of moving forward, so we're working through how to safely have our municipal court operating. We have a long-term goal of moving DUIs and that into our court. We've had conversations about that. That's been put on hold recently because of the situations. There really isn't many changes in this document. Again, this budget pretty much speaks for itself, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the municipal court.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Does anyone have questions for Keith about the municipal court? All right, hearing none, we'll continue.
So the governing body, obviously the members of the governing body will be interested in this one, and there is some changes I'd like to discuss that we're proposing in this. We've left the funding levels the same. We do understand there could be some challenges in terms of training going forward. A lot of our trainings are being canceled or are moving online. So we're not quite sure what that's going to look like, but we've kept the funding there. We have increased the community improvement grant program. We started that program last year, and our proposal is to expand it. We had success last year, and we wanted to do that. Also, we removed the council stipends, which were not utilized in the fiscal year, and have been removed from the proposed budget. So community grant, Councilor Hook, you had asked about maybe an area that would make sense to look at a matching grant. I think this would be an area that would do that. Obviously, this is your grant program, so that would be a conversation I think we could have either in the budget committee or with the city council. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on it.
Okay, any questions for Keith on this slide? Councilor Hook, do you want to take this time to kind of discuss what you had mentioned before, or would you like to wait until later?
I'm not really sure when the best time is. I just don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about it. I know that these budget committee meetings can go pretty quick once we get to the end. So I'm going to have to leave that to probably you and Keith maybe to tell me if this is an appropriate time to talk about that.
Well, it seems as good a time as any to me, Keith. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I brought it up because this was a question you had, and this is the time frame. This was community improvement grant program was based off the strong towns model of making small incremental improvements over a broad area over a long period of time. And so we were happy with the success of last year. But Councilor Hook, you've mentioned that this is a time. This is obviously it's kind of broadly defined. So I think this would be something for matching grants. This would be one of the things that would immediately come to mind about maybe for a year, sort of changing this up if that's the will of the committee to do so. So, again, a lot of this has been pretty fast moving. We planned the 30,000 just to kind of increase and enhance that program because of success last year. But we understand that this is maybe an area of flexibility, if you will.
Yeah, I would love to talk about what we might be able to do to help our residents, because internet access is so important. We've got two companies that we work with here in Stayton, and I know that there's an internet first program that is completely free, I believe, for the first 60 or 90 days. Like no contracts, nothing. I've talked to, I think it's like a federal type program, maybe. No credit checks, installation fees, anything, and it's $9.95 a month after. I'm not going to mention any like names of people that we work with for the reason that I don't want to promote a business per se during a council or a budget committee meeting. But I think that with information is so important to have right now. That everyone needs to have internet access, and if cost is the only barrier in our city, which I do know for a fact it is a barrier for some of our residents, if there's some way that we can partner with some of these businesses to do a grant program for that $9.95, during this pandemic, once that initial period of it being free stops, I would love to see if maybe that's something that we can put a portion of these funds towards. And Keith, I'd love to hear more about the matching stuff with the state. We've got a lot of struggling businesses here and nonprofits in our community. So
I see Dan's popped on. I mean, honestly, I saw it for the first time today. Dan mentioned it. I think Dan, you've read it in more detail because I'll be honest, I've only skimmed it. So Dan, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. The state has allocated $10 million for grants to cities and counties to match local appropriations to set up loan and grant programs for small business assistance and micro enterprise assistance. The press release on it came out today, so there's not a whole lot of detail, but I believe the application period will actually be opening in May. Whether it's actually going to be money for this fiscal year or next fiscal year, I'm not clear. But it is again matched to local appropriations from cities and counties for loans and grants to businesses, and it will be a 1-to-1 match.
And Dan, I have a question on that. Do you happen to know if the micro businesses count as gig or freelance type operations, or in-home businesses that people have that they've created revenue from? For example, a tutoring or I don't know, little small home businesses that people do,
Yes.
even childcare type stuff.
Yep. Yes. From the little bit I've read, those types of small home businesses would qualify. I'm not clear on whether gig employment would count. An Uber driver or something like that. That I'm not clear.
Okay, Councilor Hook, do you have any other questions about that, or can we go ahead and get the other committee to come and weigh in here on some of your ideas?
Yeah, I would just like to hear what other people have to say about it and see what we
Does
can do.
anyone else on the committee want to go ahead and sort of engage in this conversation and see if maybe that's money we could better allocate in different ways in this post-COVID atmosphere here?
Councilor Patty, I just have
Yes.
a question. Actually, I did see a slide on this, and I was looking, not a slide, I'm sorry, part of the budget that talked about this change to where we went from 20 to 30, I believe it was. Now I'm looking for it, and I can't find
No,
it.
you're right.
Yeah, and I noticed that there was also a decrease in one of those grants. The grant program decreased from 4,000 from prior year. But I can't find the slide. Do you know, or the page? Do you know what page that's on?
We
We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah. I think
Sorry, what was that, Susanna?
the community grants and the neighborhood block grants, they were like combined into one.
Okay, and that it went up to 30.
Yeah, so it's still a net increase.
Okay.
Yeah, because the one was 4,000 by itself, and the other one was 20, and we combined them together as one grant with one application process for the approval for the funds, and then increased it up to the 30.
Yes, and I believe that we
Am I missing
also,
anything?
I think we also got rid of the stipend that the council was gonna use. So that's another 7,900.
So where did that money go? Or did that just go back into like the general fund or the stipends?
Correct.
Do you know what slide that is on?
I'm looking for the page.
It's on
Okay,
page
I was
41.
Oh, perfect, thank you. I was
Councilor Patty?
Yes.
I'm wondering, maybe this is for Keith or Susanna, if that 7,900 could somehow be allocated towards some type of relief instead of wherever it went.
Yeah, it was 7,500.
You have to look at the general fund as a whole, and when you get to what your reserves and what the fiscal policies require, we just meet those needs by that being combined with all the others, because council, court, planning, police, admin, those are all one fund, so separate departments. So when we get to the slide here in a few minutes about what the reserves are there and what any fund balances are, we just beat policy as we stand right now. To adjust anymore, we're going to start to not be able to meet fiscal policy.
And that other concern, I noticed in the projections, we're not meeting fiscal policy as we go into year 2 and 3.
Correct.
So it is something we really need to consider before moving funds, because we want to meet the future requirements of the city also.
Correct. And at the very end of this entire presentation, I will be going in more detail about the 5-year projections and what that means.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to let you know, here in the community center at this point, our sound is basically gone. So we're trying to fix it, as you might see us trying to do that, but we're having a really hard time hearing or understanding anybody right now. So it seems like our Zoom connection is having some trouble. I hope you all can hear me, and we're working to see what we can do. But I'm sorry I haven't been able to hear the dialogue other than the basic question that was asked. I know, Susanna, you responded. So that's where we're at here at City Hall, or not City Hall, at the community center.
Okay. So as far as this goes, are you wanting to make a motion, Councilor Hook? Yes, Councilor Mullen. Is anyone there?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, if they're not getting sound, I'm wondering if the event itself isn't getting sound, and if we want to consider how much more we want to go into this.
Until we can go ahead and correct the difficulties, yeah.
So we are able to confirm that people outside can hear. We think what it is, it's a bandwidth connection problem we're having in here, is what we think. So
it comes back.
Yeah, and the problem we're having is the sound just sort of comes and goes and gets quiet and loud and quiet and loud and quiet and loud. But we have been verifying from people that the sound quality out in the public is okay. And if you guys aren't having the problem, that pretty much tells us it's isolated here.
Yeah. I have a good connection with you all. I can hear you pretty well. Is anyone else on this call having trouble aside from Community Center?
better now than we could.
I am getting a little bit of, I don't know, feedback, or I don't know where it's coming from though. Some of it is a little, some people are a little choppy.
Okay. Keith, do you want to maybe adjourn until we get some technical difficulties ironed out for tomorrow, or do you want to go ahaid and press through?
No,
it's
I
up
think
to you and your staff at this point.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and continue. We're turning off, making sure we have no Wi-Fi's on our phones, and trying to turn off other devices. Dave turned off his device just to give us bandwidth. I guess my main thing is, please understand when you see me turning my ear towards the microphone with my head real close, I'm not doing it for some sort of visual effect. I'm doing it so we can hear. So I think we're okay. If we have problems, we'll let you know. And it's gotten a little bit better over the last, as we've started to turn things off.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so I believe we left off. Councilor Hook had some questions, and we were kind of exploring this concept of reallocating funds. Connie Dominguez brought up a point about fiscal policy and how we might fall out of compliance with that if we were to reallocate funds. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion if anybody wants to make one regarding this issue, or if you want to go ahead and bring it up later. It's up to you completely, Councilor Hook.
I would really like to just maybe see the whole presentation and then talk about it at the end, but I just don't want it to get forgotten because I think it's an important topic to at least discuss.
Okay, absolutely.
So since Councilor Orr and Councilor Hook, I will make sure that it gets brought up if it gets forgotten, but I too am not ready to make a decision about anything like that because I feel like we do need to see the big picture.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Councilor Patty, I do believe there is a need. I just want to make sure that it doesn't jeopardize the city going forward, that we can stay compliant. So, and I think there's an extreme need for it.
Yes, yes.
And maybe we can move things around a little bit, but we need to see the whole picture first.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely agree.
All right, so let's continue on.
So administration, Susanna, are you ready to hop on with me on this one?
Yep, I'm here.
So I think the major change, and Susanna talked about it, is we took an FTE and we've divided it, and part of that division would be two things: court as a half-time position, and then a half-time position in City Hall. We're looking to potentially fill that position that way. Susanna, I know part of this is looking at the recommendations from the auditor in terms of best practices and in terms of separations of duties. So Susanna, I'll let you, did I need anything or miss anything and kind of why that's in the budget?
For the halftime position?
Yeah.
No, it's really to allow the staff that flexibility to improve internal controls and also redistribute some of the workload in the office to allow that checks and balances for each other, checking each other's work and ensuring things are accurate and we're not missing things, as well as an additional staff supporting the community, especially when we get to reopen the doors. So we can meet, because we get lots of questions that come in that are even just not even directly utility related, but just the overall needs of the community. So two big things.
Thank you for reminding us about the separation of duties portion of that. I remember you went into depth about that earlier, so it's a good reminder how important that is.
Yeah, that's really what's one of the things driving this is the auditor's findings, and we're always going to be challenged just because of the size of our organization, but we want to try to be respectful and to do what we can to make sure that we have those checks and balances and that in place. So again, one of the things is we took a full-time position and split it, but this is into part-time to have a little bit of savings, but to try to meet that need. As for the administration budget, additional changes, there's a little bit of adjustment, I think, just to talk about in terms of looking at this. We have a full-time finance director. and a full-time accounting technician. Remember, we were outsourcing our financing in the past, so. Sorry, I need to advance the slide. So that's that conversation right there. With that, I mean, the budget, I think the rest of it sort of speaks for itself. I don't think there's any significant changes of note, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on administration, and Susanna can answer questions too.
Okay, do you have any questions at this point?
All right. Non-departmental operations. So there's a couple just random things we'll talk about with this, and I'll advance. Emergency management funding, we've mentioned that as part of the goal, so that funding continues at $20,000. To complete the CDBG block grant, this is the final year of the program. Dan has sort of overseen that portion of it. Again, we're talking about the transfers to parks, library, and pool, so we're just trying to highlight those things, and I'll let Susanna speak to more than that on that, and then just the support that is being provided to these different agencies like the library and the pool. And we will have a long conversation, or a little more in-depth conversation about the pool as we move forward. But Susanna, did I miss anything on that?
No, the reason for the decrease in the park and the library and the pool itself is because each year we assess the needs of those funds. We keep enough funds in there to stay in fiscal policy. We don't build reserves in those funds per se, since they are basically supported by the general fund. So that is always a moving target. This is why this year it's the 477. The pool, and we'll go in more detail when we go into the pool and the parks itself. And one of the big changes for the pool was we had that 66,000 in reserve funds that we transferred over in this current year to address some of the needs. So we don't have that reserved money this year. So that's kind of what that decrease is for.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Yes, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
This is Councilor Ort. So you said these are the funds that are that the bonds, the money comes from the bond?
Correct. The park, the library, and the pool are supported by the levy that was passed, as well as their charge for services, and as well as the general fund subsidizes what they need to ensure that they meet fiscal policy and are able to do their activities. Did I say that right, Keith?
Yeah, I think the one thing I want to mention too, in terms of budgeting, we have the upcoming election here shortly. That has a proposal of going at 70 cents per thousand. For the budget itself, what we actually did was stayed at what we currently have at 60 cents per thousand. So we didn't show what would happen if the levy doesn't pass. We assumed it would pass at what our current level is. So I think I want to just be clear with the budget committee on, in the future, the assumptions were based off that 60 cents. So if it passes at 70 cents, there's going to be some adjustment to the good, if you will. If it fails, we'll have to have a conversation about what the budget looks like without any of that funding, or to try again probably at that 60 cent level and see if we can't get funding from there. So I just want to be transparent about what our assumptions were, so you kind of understood as you're looking at the budget going forward. Susanna, did I cover that pretty well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. Thank you, Keith.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the levy, I think it's a levy that is on our ballot. Have we done any? I know that I got a card in the mail, so I did see something about it.
No, I want to clarify really quick. We, as the city, do not participate in that. That's a individual group that has done that, so we are not a participant.
Interesting.
So,
interesting. Is there any? So my question is actually, is there anything that you guys are doing for outreach, or is there any way that citizens, residents, or even me as a counselor, that is there like any type of social media posts that I can like push out for that, because it's a really important funding piece to our city.
We as the city can't individually advocate for or promote any bond. All we can do is educate the public.
Even for city, yes, like that are coming in.
We cannot advocate or promote. All we can do is educate. So on our website, we do have educational forums. There is a pack that's been created. We have provided information to them, the same information that we provided to the public in terms of how the levy works and how it's used. So we do have that on our website. We do plan on promoting. One of the concerns we have, Councilor Patty brought this up, was with the library being closed as a drop-off. So we have promoted on our Facebook page, how you can submit your ballot. One of the concerns is we try to promote that. Facebook won't let us promote it because we're promoting an election. So we just need to make sure that we get the word out about that. But as for the levy itself, we as staff and as the city as city as a whole, we cannot promote or advocate for it.
It's very interesting, Keith. I'm really glad you brought that up. It kind of sounds like it's incumbent upon us as private citizens and elected leaders to get this message out there and let people know what's at stake here. So that's what I'm hearing. I hope everybody.
And you as elected, and you as elected leaders can promote something like that, but we as a city cannot.
Thank you.
And I need to be very clear that we are not advocating or promoting at all. We can only educate, and we'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has. And we have worked on that informational sheet to let voters know what's involved in that.
Well, we are surely educated. Does anyone else have questions regarding the slide? Okay, I don't see it here. Oh, go ahead.
Nope, I'm sorry, street lights. I feel like I could.
Was that the time that I should have asked? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Was that the time, Susanna, that I should have asked you about the pool?
Oh no, we're gonna have pool coming up.
Oh, we have a whole pool, just pool, all about the pool. Yeah.
I feel like this is a speech we give every year. We have the budget amount. Susanna lowered it a little bit just looking at the priors, and then not implemented, but the recent city council's municipal code does provide for a street light service charge designed to recover the cost of this function. I think we've had this conversation in years past. I see some nodding heads, so I just feel like I've got it on a repeat and repeat it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know the mayor was part of the conversation in last year talking about the history of this, so I'll just leave it at that and answer any questions you have.
So Councilor Ort, we do not currently charge to recover this cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
No, we do not.
So we support this.
Just as a question, what would that look like if we did charge to cover that?
It would go onto the utility bill as a street light charge for whatever amount the council decided, up to covering the cost of $115,000.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Lights. All right. The famous other requirements, and Suzanne, I'll let you talk about this.
According to our fiscal policies, we need to take 10% of our ending fund balance that is projected for the general fund and have that under contingency, meaning that we have a situation come up or we may have to spend that during the fiscal year. We bring that forward to be approved by the council, and we can move any part of that $485,000 to an expenditure because it is just in case planning for spending. And the balance goes to the unappropriated funds. This is the $765,000. That is to stay there and it does not get used unless it's a huge national disaster and we have to get a council approval. If not, that is designated earmarked to roll over to the next fiscal year to assist with next year's budget. We also need to remember that money is also part of holding the fact that it takes almost 6 months for the property tax revenue to come in the general funds, basically supported by property tax. This allows for that operations to continue, staff to get paid, needs to get met until that tax money is received in late November or October and November. And so this is an increase from last year's, so that's nice for going forward. Any questions on that?
I have a question, Councilor Hook.
Yeah.
I think thank you. Susanna, I'm curious about this year's budget's contingency. You said something about national emergency. I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but have we had a chance as a city to look into whether we can tap into some of that contingency from this year's budget to help support some of the funds that we've lost? I don't know how to really explain it any better than that. I'm just thinking it's kind of like a rainy day fund type thing.
No, it's not a rainy day fund. It's to cover the first 5.5 months of revenue starting in the beginning of the fiscal year until we receive the property taxes in October and November. And the only way to touch that if something catastrophic happens, because once you touch that, you've now put your next fiscal year into crisis. And that's why the fiscal policies are designed the way they're designed. The general fund at this point is just meeting requirement with not much leeway for any additional changes at this point.
So this
I may have not explained myself very well on what the unapportionment portion is actually for.
So this year's contingency that we're currently in covers the first 6 months of next year's.
The unappropriated portions that are sitting there right now that we have not used, go into the beginning fund balance for this budget that you're currently looking at. And that beginning fund balance is now broken out. If you turn to page let me show you. This might help. Let me get the right page.
It
might be easier to see. Give me just a second, trying to find it. Okay, on page 23 of your budget book, you see the snapshot of all the funds and all the expenses, and you see all the beginning fund balances. So all of the money that's sitting in contingency and our unappropriate balance is that 1.4 million that becomes your beginning fund balance, and including whatever we don't spend in our budget. And that beginning fund balance is what covers us for the next fiscal year. And at the end of this year, of the 2021 budget, this 765,000 needs to start the following fiscal year to ensure that we can meet payroll and other needs from in that first 5.5 months until property taxes come again the following October. Does that help?
So tiny.
It's hard to understand, I know.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an accountant. So you're saying that the 485,300 is part of that stuff that gets rolled over to this year?
The combined combination of both the 1.2 million of this number, yes, will get rolled into the 21-22 beginning fund balance budget to cover the cash that we will not have to pay the first almost 6 months of our expenses.
Okay.
It's almost like living on a person who lives by commission. You only get it so often, so you have your monthly bills ready to go, so that way you have that flexibility when cash does come.
I see. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ms. Porter's got a question.
Yes, Luke?
Ms. Porter has a question.
Oh.
Mayor Porter, go ahead.
Let me unmute him. All right, go.
That question's also explained on page 47 of the book. Just exactly the way you explained it.
Okay, perfect. And if you go all the way to the end of the book where it says your fiscal policies, it's also stated in there the fiscal policy that you approved the prior year on what those percentages need to be to ensure the city meets its financial obligations on a month-to-month basis without having to borrow funds in order to meet their cash needs until revenues come in.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the minimum balance that this can be before it becomes out of policy?
we need to have nothing less than just $958,000 to just barely meet needs. And we have about 290,000 above that with the unknown of what our revenues will really do.
Okay.
So we're just right there. Got $200,000.
This is the one we're talking about where in a couple years it's going to start getting smaller and smaller and smaller, correct?
If you look at our 5-year fiscal plan, we do not meet fiscal policies next year at all, and it continues to decrease.
Okay.
And the 5-year projections at this point are based on flatlining this current year and then doing a 2% and then up to more like the 3% we normally go in the 3rd year out. Kind of following what we went through in the recession when we started out with like 0.4%, and then it took to like a 2%, and it took 5 years to climb back up. So I kind of looked at that a little bit as I was projecting that out, and we're still not meeting policy going forward.
Thank you.
Susanna?
Did I answer that, Luke?
Councilor Orr, was that you?
Yes. Susanna, this is Councilor Ort. It's a little off topic, but something you said made me think of it. So I know that we can't use any like emergency funding, COVID funding for lost revenue, but for things like materials, extra PPE that the officers need and things like that. Is that money? Are we able to recoup any of those costs so that they're not spending any of that? I see keep coming on. So that we're not spending any of our budget, of our regular budget on those items that we normally wouldn't need in this time.
So Keith can jump in, but at this point, what we're doing is we're having to use our funds. We're keeping track of what our staff time is and what our expenses are that is related to the COVID-19. And until they allow us to be able to submit these requests for funding, if we can't at this point that I know of, they're still kind of working out the details. We'll be ready to have those numbers going forward. So all staff is tracking what expenses are related to that. Keith, do you have more to add?
That's correct. And at this point, we still don't have any direct. I know Dave has applied for some grants already that have been available through sources he has. We're monitoring the situation and keeping track of all of that. The League of Oregon Cities right now is, and the state is working towards funds to be able to go to cities and counties. One of the big challenges is in the CARES Act. Only communities of size of 500,000 or larger, which I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think it was 28 communities qualified for reimbursement. So I know there's a lot of work being done right now through different organizations to try to do that. At this point, our expenses haven't been extreme. We have been using our emergency funding that we have to help support that. But as we look forward to what will be getting some weeds here, but in opening and safety measures and things like that, there are expenses that we know we're going to incur. Having conversations right now about protection and equipment. We're still struggling to get the materials that we know we're going to need in terms of PPEs and wipes and even some concerns about plastic barriers and things like that, because of course everybody is searching for the same things. But we are being proactive and looking to find ways that when funding does become available, we can detail and highlight and show what those are and hopefully receive funds back.
Chair Patty, I have a question.
Go ahead, Council.
I am wondering about the PPE needs that the city has. Are you guys needing or considering using washable type masks? I know there's a bunch of people that are making those for like the hospital, and it could be a free resource for the city. I know some people that are willing to make them for small businesses in our community as well. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a variety of masks, depending on need and situation. We did have a 3D printer company that provided something that we could reuse, but not a perfect situation, but something that we could give to our officers to do that. We're looking about acquiring the different styles of PPEs and safety equipment that we're going to need. The masks really vary on situations, so also
like administration wise and like office, public facing and just people coming into public works and stuff. Do you guys need any type of reusable type mask that you can wash and then give them to visitors coming in?
I think the big challenge we're facing right now, and we've already been working on this with our public works crew, is to set up and create barriers and protocols moving forward. Part of that is going to be to make sure that we can get that equipment. I know Tom Etzel right now is working on that. The challenge is trying to secure the plastic that everybody's seeking. Same type thing. We have the PPEs that we need for a police department. But moving forward, especially if this is a long-term thing, we're going to need to try to continue to secure, and that's one of the things staff is working on, the different levels of materials. And that part of the other question would be just creating the policy and seeing going forward what some of these things will look like. But that is something we're working on. At this point, we've been using our emergency funds. I wouldn't say this is an enormous expense. It is an expense. The bigger expense has just been staff time that's been dedicated to this. So I'm not sure we'll get reimbursement for that. That's just part of what our jobs are in some ways. But for all of that, we are looking and working and spending time on different resources and open to things that we can do. We've had some success. We were lucky that Amazon approved us as a first responders unit, and we've had some success. One of the things we're still working on is sanitary Clorox wipes, which are in back order and some equipment like that. But we're trying to make sure that we have gloves for people and different masks and masks for people who come in as well. So, and there is some legal questions in that. So we'll have, further dialogue with our city attorney.
I have another question.
Okay, one more.
Yeah, thanks. My question is also regarding the COVID-19 situation. And I'm curious about what else we can do as a community, as counselors. This is an education piece that I'm asking for, Keith. What can we do to help get funding for this? Because it's my understanding that, as you said, if you had 500,000 people in your city, then you could directly apply to the federal government. The states did receive some money for COVID-19 related costs, but it's my understanding, and don't quote me on it, that the governor's office has no intention of giving that out to cities for us to apply for at this time. So is there anything that we can do as counselors, as residents, that would help us talk to the right people to get that included in something later?
I think what I'll say at this point is that we're in conversations with different entities and agents, trying to make sure, and working with the League of Oregon Cities and other organizations, trying to make sure that we as the community in Stayton aren't left behind. We're trying to partner with our neighboring communities as well, Sublimity and Nomsville, to try to increase our work. We're working with multiple people trying to make sure that we can. At this point, it's just going to be to try. I know that the state just asked for $1 trillion, for local needs. I know the LOC is very active in trying to do that. So we've been working with Mike Coley and the LOC and expressing our help and support. At some point, to answer your question, there might be a letter or something that we could apply. You can also, if it hits the state capitol, then we might need to reach out to our local representatives to ask for assistance to make sure that we're included. One of the big challenges we're facing is, unfortunately, with our size, we just find ourselves a little bit down on the needs priority list.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or can we continue on here? Anyone else have a question? All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Wait.
Everybody. So the Stayton Public Library fulfills a vital role in our community by keeping people connected, whether virtually or in person.
The library provides information and entertainment through our physical and electronic resources. We build relationships and advocate for lifelong learning while remaining visible and approachable regardless of the venue. Next. So during the COVID-19 closure, we've adapted our programming. We're providing virtual storytime through Zoom, storytime snippets that can be used by parents to provide early literacy to their children on their own, DIY craft video series, and a virtual book club. So SCTC made it possible to extend the library's Wi-Fi throughout the parking lot, to provide drive-up Wi-Fi to the community. Now you can go, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Also this year, we hosted our third annual local art show. We had a very successful Storytime on the Go series in partnership with the Library Foundation and our community partners. We provided outreach storytime to over 3,000 children this year, and we continue to participate in CCRLS. This year, we also altered our programming practices. We're working on finding ways to continue to serve our community during the closure. We've enhanced our online resources by increasing access to downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. We've also continued to develop our programming. This year, we split our family storytime into 2 sessions, one for toddlers and one for preschoolers. That was a move that allowed us to focus those storytimes a little bit, but also allowed us to accommodate the ever-growing program attendance, which is a wonderful problem to have. We added a teen and book club, an evening pajama storytime, and continue to increase our STEM programming. The library funding includes $183,600 from the levy, a proposed transfer from the general fund of $177,400, and $104,090 in CCRLS reimbursement. We're also very fortunate to have support from both our Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Anyone have questions? Jane? Okay, not hearing any, but great work on this. This is awesome. We really appreciate your story time over here at the patio sets too, especially the virtual ones. So thank you for keeping those online distance programs going as well.
I'll let you go forward.
Okay. So the pool, and Susanna, I'll let you work with me on the pool. I think one of the things I'll start this conversation with is we took over the pool a few years ago from the YMCA. What we've really been looking at is kind of data of the operations of the pool. If you recall, for those who were around, when we took back over the pool, we said, we're making some guesses and estimates. McKinsey hasn't finished their needs assessment, but one of the things that they said is, without question, the worst building we have is the pool. And the pool is probably our biggest challenge in terms of, if you look at the needs of the pool and the operational costs of the pool, this is the fund that is the most challenging that we face, both short-term and long-term. And I'm looking forward to what McKinsey has to say and to have conversations. I want to say that we as a staff are dedicated to the pool. We believe the pool is an asset to the community. It's just trying to make it work. But what we were able to do, and Susanna did a great job with this, is really start to look at what kind of revenues we're bringing in, what the expenses are, and to try to present a budget that going forward will allow us to do some of the significant deferred maintenance, also keeping operations of the pool moving forward. So this is the fund that probably has some of the biggest changes, and so I'll be happy. We'll answer questions and talk about this. But basically, one of the things is we're going to need to update our fees and charges to cover our variable costs at 10%. One of the big factors we're facing is the Oregon minimum wage increase, which has a large impact on our cost. A reduction of weekly operating hours from 88 to 63. So I understand it's a big cut, but please keep in mind that we're still averaging 9 hours per day, 7 days a week on our pool. And to update allocation and increase recognition of administrative time on pool activities. Susanna, what did I miss in that conversation right there?
when evaluating the revenue coming in, we also took a look at the most popular things about the pool is the swimming lessons and the senior programs with golden sneakers and things like that. The reduction in the weekly hours has not touched those two programs at all. Billy and I work together quite well to adjust it in a way to continue those most important things the community wants. So that doesn't hurt, which is very helpful why we use that difference to deal with the maintenance going forward.
And that's
important to note.
Yeah, it's one of the big challenges, and it is in your budget, and I would encourage you to look at the 5-year forecast of the pool. But one of the big challenges we're facing is some of the long-term deferred maintenance costs that are just sort of coming to bear right now on the pool. And they're pretty significant in terms of making sure that we can keep the pool operational. We've talked about this over the last few years, so I think this shouldn't be a surprise for those who have been involved in these budget process in the past. And I think we'll see more information going forward with the McKinsey report. But there is quite a few needs because of deferred maintenance, and so at this point, it just in terms of operations, and we are concerned that we really need to start moving on some of these needs, or else the pool may not, may need to be closed down until we can do significant repairs, such as the new roof, HVAC system, and the surge pump area. So.
I have a couple questions.
Councilor Orr, go ahead.
Thank you. So this is Councilor Orr. So Keith, you mentioned that, or sorry, I apologize, Susanna, maybe it was you. You said that the swim lessons, those aren't going to be affected. And so my question is, are these numbers the, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but the performance measures? It seems to be the only one that has actually decreased and everything else has gone up. And then also the instructors, you have a budget of 2.5 FTEs for the position, but then you're projecting it down to 0.85. And so, I mean, obviously you need instructors to do those functions. And as someone who utilizes those lessons for my kids, I know how quickly even the swimming lessons that are there go. And so I'm just concerned that, I mean, that's I know people that come from out of town to do our swimming lessons, and so I know that's a pretty big draw, not only for people in the community, but for people outside of our community. So can you kind of explain that for me, if I'm missing something there?
How she restructured them and the timings of when they're happening, and then how many lifeguards and backups she needs and class sizes is a factor in that. Wish I had. Somewhere in my house office. But and then also working with, like, we have the nonprofit that come and rents it and does their lessons there as well, and those grades. So having their support for how many people are watching the pool itself during the swim lessons. So some of those structures helped. The timing of them are still happening. So like, we're not doing them as late in the evening. We're going to have a gap in the pool where it's going to be closed in the middle of the day to adjust so that they can still put those in there. Some of those things is how we moved it around in order for it to work.
Okay.
That helps. Because instead of being open from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., it's going to be closed for a little bit and then reopen. And then there are some exercises in there that were like free exercises you can exercise on your own. It's those free times when we can't navigate how much a staff needs to be there for the requirements of how many lifeguards per participants that are in the pool. So by changing those hours around so those swim lessons are more impacted, it makes a huge difference. So you're seeing those change instead of the other swimming lessons.
Okay. Can you specifically, so on page 53, the first line for the ages 6 months to 18 years. So we're going from 656 to 450. They're going down. What is that? What is that number? Is that people? Membership?
I think one of the things you're looking at there is we're dealing with some impacts of closure with some of these.
That was. I was wondering if that was part of it because we're being closed and people aren't utilizing it as well.
Correct, and based off of the current governor's order, we would need to be in phase 2, which means if Marion County is approved, and we'd still need to make some adjustments to how the pool operations occur, of course. There's going to be a lot of other considerations, but we anticipate the pool will be closed at least another 3 weeks from this Friday and potentially longer. So we're going to see numbers continue to go down, but what you're seeing is the impact of just the closures that we've had.
Okay, but then the other programs are going up.
These were as
you're comparing the I just want to make sure I understand. You're comparing the projection of 2021 against what 1920 is looking like now?
I guess. I mean, I feel a little silly, but I guess I don't understand what these numbers are.
No, Councilor Ward, I see what you're talking about. I'm looking at page 53 of the budget. I'm looking under the lessons header here. And there is an increase in special classes, Kiwanis, third grade swim lessons, SBC swim lessons, daycare. Is that what you're referring to, Councilor Orr?
Yes, but then the other swim lessons at the top has gone down.
And we're projecting to be, at this point when we wrote this, we were unsure when we're opening, so we're kind of projecting that we're going to stay closed up to the time that we're going to close the pool again to finish the resurfacing that we didn't finish last year. So some of those things are impacted. So we're trying to do our best educated guess on what we think it might fall out to be based on the closures that are there.
Yeah,
and then
I think the confusion lies that it is increasing. I think the confusion lies that it's increasing.
Both counselors here. I'm confused as well.
I guess I just want to make sure that if the reasoning is that we are closed down and so we're figuring that they're less, I'm okay with that answer. But it is confusing to me that these other lessons are going up even though they're closed, and they should be occurring right now as well. So they're going up, but I don't. This is an important. Maybe it's not important to other people on this committee, but this is important. It's one of the reasons that I enjoy living here is the utilization of the pool. And so I just want to make sure that we aren't shortchanging. Like when it's time to go back and I call up, that they decrease the lessons. Like I'm not going to be happy about that when we're talking about it now. So I just want to make sure that that's not the case.
So you've got to take a look at the 18-19 actuals against what we're projecting 2021, because the 19-20 year has had a double negative. The pool being closed longer than anticipated for resurfacing issues and closing in COVID, because we've been closed since the last day of March. So all of April's closed, all of May is closed so far. And so we're kind of estimating, one, also some people may not feel comfortable coming back to the pool even though we open, because everyone's going to have a different level of trust on what they're going to feel safe doing. So we're kind of trying to do an educated guess on those things in effect. We are making some changes in our system for tracking which programs are being which programs are actually happening. So hopefully at the end of this coming fiscal year, we'll have some better numbers. Billy and I spent some time while the pool is closed where she's working on our software where she's tracking the type. So we've changed some categories. So hopefully we can get some more efficient numbers as well. So because some of these are kind of blurred in how they're being reported in her system right now. But that's kind of what we were looking at when we were going from 18-19 actuals to what we're going to do in 2021, and took the 19-20 at where they are right now.
Okay.
Does that help?
Counselor Patty?
Yes, go ahead.
I have a clarifying comment, I guess. I think I understand why Counselor Ort is a little confused, because it would seem like it would be consistent across the board.
Yep.
The way it's presenting is that the 6 months to 18 years has actually decreased. So I guess the question would be, have you reduced the classes that you're going to offer in those age ranges?
No. And if you look at the 17, 18 year, you see you only had 621 participants. You need to, and then it went up to 1,100 the next year. And then right now, up through March, we only had 656. So that number constantly seems to be changing. And I don't know if that's based on growth in the community, ages, needs, right? But those are numbers that continue to change. That seems to be a hard line to track.
So your projection is based on, you're just doing like is it based on what last year's were, or are they trying to do a projection on averages?
It's kind of a little bit of both. We didn't do a fancy number. There's no set formula. But the reality is, in the 17, 18, we did 620, and then we did 1,100, and now we're back down to 656. If we don't open till after summer and don't open till September, we're going to lose another 3 or 4 months, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, I was
That's kind of what we were doing.
The thing I noticed is that it's not consistent for each category.
Right.
Where it goes up on all the other ones, but not that one. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and the Kiwanis is they pay and for the use of the facility, and we don't control how many members of the Kiwana Club comes. They just block out the pool for certain hours. If you were to pull up the pool schedule right now, you'll see that they have a block time, and that number fluctuates on their membership. The special classes, we're assuming that it's going to be somewhere in there because a lot of those are our seniors for the golden sneakers and things like that. So that is, as long as they're going to be allowed to come back to the pool, we should be okay, right?
Yeah, I guess to answer another question too, I mean, when we focus on this budget, what we really focused on in working with Billy and Susanna, and Billy did a great job with this, was making sure that those core services that are the priorities of the community are met. That was really what our goal was. And the swim lessons and the senior were the two highest, and that's what Billy expressed to us. And so we worked with her to make sure that those were the priorities. And also it deals with at least variable cost, if you will, in some ways too, because they're more of a known entities.
So Keith, just to kind of sum this up, out of the 25 hours a week that are going away from the pool's hours of operations, what are those 25 hours mainly comprised of? Just open swim?
Yeah, open swim would be a big majority of that. Susanna, I'm trying to remember what else. But
and the open movement ones that you can come in and just do free laps or something if you wanted to.
Okay.
Some of those ones that are those variables that are hard to predict how many staff she needs to have there.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. And just to kind of take this back, this is mainly because having the staff during those hours and increases in the minimum wage costs, it's not as feasible fiscally at this point, right? That's kind of what I'm getting.
No, that's exactly right. The variable cost of those additional hours and the cost of operation to keep them there. I mean, pools are never money makers, so right. You supplement them. So it's trying to keep with those core services and make sure we're being as efficient as we can on the supplemental dollars and making sure that we can start doing some of that repair work that's needed in the pool, moving forward. And I want to be clear that this budget doesn't solve all of the funding needs of the pool. It just gets us moving in the right direction. This is in terms of facilities our biggest challenge. And as a staff, we've been dedicated to it. We agree that one of the things that makes Stayton unique is our pool. We consider it one of our unique assets, and we're dedicated. Susanna's been dedicated. Billy's been dedicated to how do we keep this going and how do we move forward. And I hope the McKinsey report provides some information or details to have more conversations about what we can do.
Excellent, thank you.
Chair Patty, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor.
So to kind of follow up with Councilor Orr, the importance of the pool. I think that we all feel like it is important. Is there any plan, Keith, for increasing the amount of lessons? Because this COVID-19 thing is going to reshape the way people interact outside of the community. I think that we're going to see a lot more people staying close to home because that is what we've been doing. And so is there a plan in place that if on that first day that registration is open, or that first week that registration is open for the following month, do we have a plan to add more classes to meet that need for our community so that we can kind of keep our community in our community? It's safer that way than traveling to like Salem for these types of classes.
So kind of estimating a surge capacity for the pool.
Yeah,
lessons.
is there any plan for that? I mean, have you guys discussed the fact that that might happen? I mean, I don't have any scientific data to.
No, that's an interesting idea. I would concur with that.
I mean, I think with anything, if it, this is about being flexible in a budget. If there is an unexpected change, I mean, that's the conversations you start to have, right? Of what adaptations we can make, and what changes we can make. No, we had anticipated like if there's a surge, but if there's a surge, that's part of what we're supposed to be doing, is looking at that and seeing what we can do to meet that need. I think the bigger concern I would have, if I'm just speaking freely here, is that we see people not go to the pool because of the concern, and we see a decrease. But I hope in this situation, maybe I'm going to be wrong, and maybe there'll be an increase, and we can deal with that. I'm concerned that people are not going to want to go to areas, especially locker rooms or gyms or things of that nature. And that's one of the challenges, even in phase 2, is locker rooms can't be open. And how many people are going to want to use the pool when they can't use the locker rooms?
Yeah, I would be really interested, and I can talk to you about this offline, I guess, but I'd be really interested in hearing what the sanitation plan is for the pool. I think that you're probably right, it will decrease for a while, but I think then we're going to see an increase in people going because they're going to want to stay in the community and still be out and about. But I would love to know what our plan is for sanitation when we do open.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're working on sanitation and functions for all different departments as we move forward. So all of those are being worked on as we speak, and as we get closer, I'll be happy to share some of those things. Some of it's going to be dictated by what happens with the county and what the governor's requirements are, and so we'll have to work within those confines, and also working with the unions to make sure that the unions feel like they're safe and taken care of as well. We want to make sure that our employees and our public are safe in all their interactions. So those are the challenges we're working through. I talked a little bit about some of the challenges with equipment and materials, so we're working on that as well. It's a constant daily issue.
Okay.
I would like to be informed of when those policies come forward, personally.
No, I think I'd like to see that as well, Keith. That sounds really interesting.
Okay.
All right.
So, Councilor Patty, I know you're the chair. In the years past, this is the point we've stopped. I'm not going to suggest that. I'm just saying this is kind of as we get into
let's do it. I'm with you, Keith. It's 8:25 p.m. Unless anyone else wants to continue. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and adjourn until tomorrow evening at 6. Okay. So it looks like I said, our next meeting is going to be tomorrow, 6 p.m. And then finally on Wednesday, May 13th, again at 6 p.m. if needed. Other than that, I have nothing. Does anybody else need to say anything before we get off here? Staff?
I just want to say thank you to the staff.
Yes, thank you, staff.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nothing else from
All
us.
right. Excellent. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:26 p.m. in that case. Everybody have a good evening.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.